We are going to discuss about the partition algorithm using an array of 6 elements. Let's make it as simple as possible. Let's take the last element, that is 4, with an array index of 5 as the pivot element. On comparison with the pivot element, the value 1 is less than 4, so we can swap the values in pi and I. We need to increment both pi and I to make a comparison with the next element. On comparison with the pivot element, the value in the array index I, that is 3, is less than 4. So we can swap the value, we can increment pi and I to switch to the next element. On comparison with the pivot element, the value in I is greater than the pivot element. So we don't have to do anything and we can just move on to the next element. On comparison with the pivot element, the value in I, that is 2, is less than 4. So we can swap the values of pi and I. We can increment the pi and I to move to the next element. As we have reached the pivot element, we can swap the values of pi and I. Now we have reached the resultant array, that is the values less than the pivot element have came on the left of the pivot element and values greater have came to the right of the pivot element, and thus the array is sorted using the partition algorithm.